The
Don't
very
forget to
moment you
subscribe.
recognize
Afterwards,
them,
the wisest and
you will
most
be
spiritual
liberated.
books from the greatest authors
When you
await
recite
you every
this,
day.
the
And now buckle
deceased
up,
will
sit back
recognize
and we'll
them as
begin.
his archetype deity, the
Dissolve
Tibetan book of the
inseparably
dead,
into them
and become a Buddha. Thus, through the instructions of the spiritual teacher, when you recognize these deities as your own visions, the creations of your own awareness, then you will be liberated, just as you become free from fear when you recognize that a frightening lion is only stuffed. If you did not know that a certain lion was stuffed, you would feel fear and hate when encountering it, but when someone tells you what it really is, you are relieved and lose all fear. So, when you see the host of Haruka deities, with their huge bodies and powerful limbs, arising to fill all space, you will surely feel fear and hate. But as soon as you receive this orientation, you can recognize them as your own visions or as your archetype deities. The clear light you have previously meditated on and the clear light that now arises can merge like mother and child, and you are instantly liberated in the natural clarity of your own awareness, like meeting an old friend, since in such awareness whatever arises is naturally liberated. If you have not received this orientation, even if you are a good person, you will turn away from these fierce deities and wander further in the life cycle. Then the 8 fierce gory goddesses and the 8 Pishachi ghouls with their animal heads will emerge from within her brain and appear to her. After calling the deceased by name, you should orient her as follows. Hey, noble one. Listen without wavering. The 8 gory goddesses will emerge from within your brain and appear to you. Do not fear them. From the east of your brain appears to your east a white gory, her right hand holding a corpse as a club and her left hand holding a blood-filled skull bowl. Do not fear her. From the south, a yellow chori, aiming a bow and arrow. From the west, a red pramoha, holding a crocodile victory standard. From the north, a black vitali, holding a vajra and a blood-filled skull bowl. From the southeast, an orange pikasi, her right hand holding intestines, her left hand feeding them into her mouth. From the southwest, a dark green gismari, her left hand holding a blood-filled skull bowl and her right hand holding a vajra, with which she stirs the blood and feeds it into her mouth. From the northwest, a pale yellow chandali holding a body and head across her shoulders, her right hand holding a heart and her left hand feeding herself with the corpse. From the northeast, a dark blue shmashani, feeding on a headless body. All these 8 holy ground gory goddesses emerge from within your brain and appear to you surrounding the 5 Harukas. Do not fear them. These gory goddesses have human-like heads and faces, except that they have 3 eyes, with 1 vertical eye in the middle of their forehead. They have 2 arms and 2 legs. They appear with the most fearsome aspect imaginable. You have not visualized them correctly if they do not inspire terror. They are said to come from the holy grounds in the various quarters of the earth, as they are awesome guardians associated with the sacred burial places and power spots of the land. Hey, noble one. Listen without wavering. After that, the 8 Pishachi ghouls of the Holy Lands will appear to you. From the east, a dark maroon, lion-headed Samhasya, crossing her arms over her chest, holding a corpse in her mouth, and tossing her mane. From the south, a red, tiger-headed Vyagrasya, crossing her arms downward, staring hypnotically and gnashing her fangs. From the west, a black, jackal-headed Shrigalasya, with a razor in her right hand, holding and feeding on intestines in her left hand. From the north, a dark blue, wolf-headed Shvanasya, lifting a corpse up to her mouth with her two hands and staring hypnotically. From the southeast, a light yellow, vulture-headed Gridrasya, carrying a corpse over her shoulder and holding a skeleton in her hand. From the southwest, a dark red, hawk-headed Kankasya, carrying a corpse over her shoulder. From the northwest, a black, crow-headed Caucasia, with a sword in her right hand, eating lungs and hearts. From the northeast, a dark blue, owl-headed Eulicasia, eating flesh and holding a Vajra in her right hand and a sword in her left hand. All these Holy Land Pishachi ghouls emerge from within your brain and appear to you surrounding the 5 Harukas. Do not fear them. Recognize whatever arises as the creativity of your own visionary awareness. These ghouls have animal heads, as described, and 2 arms and 2 legs. They are cannibalistic and revolting. Hey, noble one. Listen without wavering. The 4-door guardian goddesses will emerge from your own brain and appear to you, so recognize them. From the east of your brain, a white, horse-headed Ankusha, with an iron hook in her right hand and a blood-filled skull bowl in her left hand, will appear to your east. From the south, a yellow, pig-headed Pasha holding a noose. From the west, a red, lion-headed Shrinkala, holding an iron chain. From the north, a green, serpent-headed Ganta holding a bell. These 4-door guardian goddesses will emerge from your brain and appear to you. Recognize them as being your own archetype deities. Hey, noble one. Outside of these 30 fierce Haruka deities, the 28 Ishvari goddesses with their various heads and their various implements will emerge from within your brain and appear to you. Do not fear them, but recognize them as the creativity of your own visionary awareness. At this time, when you have arrived at the crucial moment of cessation, remember the instructions of your spiritual teacher. The 30 fierce Haruka deities are the 10 Haruka fathers and mothers, the 8 Gors, the 8 Pishachas, and the 4-door guardian goddesses. The Ishvari goddesses below are also called Yajanas, indicating that they are deities of the subtle realms of the interior experience of advanced adepts. They are also goddesses of the Indian pantheon, many of them being female forms of well-known deities, such as Brahma, Indra, Kumara, and so forth. A person from another culture would want to include fierce angels from his own culture, thinking of them as icons of these spiritual beings alive within his own psyche. Their animal heads also indicate that they represent the powers of the natural world. Making your peace with them thus puts you into a balanced state in relation to your culturally induced sense of the divine realm, as well as to the living presences in your natural environment. Hey, noble one. From the east, the dark maroon, yak-headed Rakshasi holding a Vajra, the orange, serpent-headed Brahmi holding a lotus, the dark green, leopard-headed Maheshvari holding a trident, the blue, mongoose-headed Labha holding a wheel, the red, mule-headed Kumari holding a javelin, the white, bear-headed Indrani holding an intestine noose. These 6 Eastern Yajanas emerge from your own brain and appear before you. Do not fear them. Hey, noble one. From the south, the yellow, bat-headed Vajra holding a razor, the red, crocodile-headed Shanti holding a vase, the red, scorpion-headed Amrita holding a lotus, the white, hawk-headed Chandra holding a Vajra, the dark green, box-headed Gada holding a club, the yellow-black, tiger-headed Rakshasi holding skull bowl blood. These 6 southern Yajanas emerge from your own brain and appear before you. Do not fear them. From the west, The dark green, vulture-headed Bakshasi holding a club. The red, horse-headed Rati holding a human torso. The white, Garuda-headed Mahabali holding a club. The red, dog-headed Rakshasi holding a Vajra razor. The red, hoopoe-headed Kama aiming a bow and arrow. The red-green, deer-headed Vasaraksha holding a vase. These 6 Western yajanas emerge from within your brain and appear before you. Do not fear them. Hey, noble one. From the north, the blue, wolf-headed Vayavi holding a banner. The red, ibex-headed Narini holding an impaling stake. The black, boar-headed Varahi holding a tusked noose. The red, crow-headed Rati holding a child's skin. The green-black, elephant-headed Mahanasi holding a fresh corpse and drinking blood from a skull bowl. The blue, serpent-headed Varuni holding a serpentinus. These 6 northern yajanas will emerge from within your brain and appear before you. Do not fear them. Hey, noble one. The 4 outer door guardian yajanas will emerge from within your brain and appear before you. From the east, the white cuckoo-headed Vajra holding an iron hook. From the south, the yellow, goat-headed Vajra holding a noose. From the west, the red, lion-headed Vajra holding an iron chain. From the north, the green-black, serpent-headed Vajra holding a bell. These 4 door yajanas will emerge from within your brain and appear before you. All these 28 goddesses arise naturally from the creativity of the self-originating bodies of the fierce Harukas, so you should recognize them as Buddha wisdom. Hey, noble one. The truth body arises from the voidness side as the peaceful deities. Recognize it. The beatific body arises from the clarity side as the fierce deities. Recognize it. At this time when the 58 deity Haruka host emerges from within your brain and appears before you, if you know that whatever arises is arisen from the natural energy of your own awareness, you will immediately become non-dual with the Haruka body and become a Buddha. The concept of clarity voidness indivisible is precisely parallel to the inconceivable non-duality of the ultimate truth body and the relative beatific body of the Buddhas. Voidness is not a dark nothingness, the purely negative zone we might think of when we allow our mind to imagine something corresponding to the unimaginable absolute. Voidness is the voidness of the intrinsic reality of everything, including voidness itself. It is precisely that form of the absolute that does not pose as any sort of pseudo-relative absolute. It does not get in the way of the infinite network of relativities. Therefore it is the creativity of clarity, of light, of infinite distinctness. And that distinctness is capable of relationality because it is free of intrinsic realities. Creativity and freedom, clarity and voidness are non-dual. The void side of the non-duality is aligned with the truth body, the presence and enlightenment of the Absolute as a body, an experiential, infinite, calm presence. And the clear side of the non-duality is aligned with the beatific body, the presence and enlightenment of the relative awareness of the Absolute through self-releasing ecstasy as a body, an experiential, infinite, orgasmic ecstasy. The truth body presence is imaged forth to human consciousness in the form of the calm archetype deities. The beatific body ecstasy is imaged forth in the form of the fierce archetype deities. And both these aspects of perfect enlightenment are completely inseparable from your own natural intelligence and sensitivity. If you recognize them as your own essential nature, then freedom is yours, and the enlightenment of Buddhahood. Hey, noble one. If you do not recognize that, you will cling to superficial reality, feel fear and hate, and flee these deities. You will go down again into excessive misery. If you do not recognize them, you will perceive the whole Haruka deity host as if they were Yamas, lords of death, and you will fear the Haruka deities. You will hate them. You will panic. You will faint. Your own visions having become devils, you will wander in the life cycle. You have met Yama before as the Lord of Death, the Lord of the underworld who acts as judge of the good and bad deeds of the deceased and assigns them their destiny. His minions are those who come for the soul of the dying, and so to perceive Yama is to meet death perceived as an alien, hostile being who threatens one with the ultimate power of life and death and destiny in the beyond. So the deceased who refuses to acknowledge the power and glory of her own consciousness, who cannot incorporate all the repressed imagery of her unconscious, perceives the fierce deities as alien, hostile beings, mortal enemies, and thereby gives herself over to terror and hatred. Thus, to help the dying effectively, it is not enough to prepare the departing person for mild and peaceful images. If the Indian and Tibetan imagery seems too strange and exotic, then local imagery of fierce cherubim or seraphim, of animal totems or shamanic nature spirits, whatever it takes will be required to prepare the dying person for the wild and intense imagery her own mind will naturally generate. Hey, noble one. These mild and fierce deities at most will be as big as space, at medium will be as large as Sumeru, the planetary axis, at the least will be as large as 18 times the height of your own body, so do not be afraid of them. All visible existence will arise as lights and deities. And all visions arising as lights and deities must be recognized as the natural energy of your own awareness. When your own energy dissolves non-dually into these natural lights and deities, you will become a Buddha. Oh my child. What you see and perceive, whatever terrifying visions occur, recognize them as your own visions. Recognize the clear light as the natural energy of your own awareness. If you so recognize, there is no doubt you will become a Buddha right away. The so-called instantaneous perfect Buddhahood will have come to pass. Remember this in your mind. Hey, noble one. If now you do not recognize the light, and if you cling to terror, all the mild deities will arise as black Mahakala guardians. All the fierce deities will arise as Yama Dharmaraja deities. Your own visions having become devils. You will wander in the life cycle. Even the mild deities will appear as demonic guardians, grisly and frightening in aspect, just as the fierce deities will appear as death gods. Hey, noble one. If you do not recognize your own visions, though you become expert in all scriptures of Sutra and Tantra, though you practice the Dharma for an eon, you will not become a Buddha. If you recognize your own visions, with one key, one word, you will become a Buddha. If you do not recognize your own visions, then the moment you die, reality arises in the between in the image of Yama Dharmaraja, the Lord of Death. The Yama Dharmaraja deities will arise at most filling all of space, at medium like huge mountains, filling the whole world. Their fang-like teeth protruding over their lips, their eyes like glass, their hair bound up on top of their heads, with protruding bellies, with thin necks, they carry punishment boards and shout, "Beat him!" and "Kill him!" They lick up your brains, they sever your head from your body, and they extract your heart and vital organs. Thus they arise, filling the world. Thus the Yama death gods appear as the crystallizations of the dying person's vivid guilt and anxious sense of remorse, not only for bad deeds committed, but also for all the negative and evil impulses that he has repressed. Hey, noble one. When it happens that such a vision arises, do not be afraid. Do not feel terror. You have a mental body made of instincts. Even if it is killed or dismembered, it cannot die. Since in fact you are a natural form of voidness, anger at being injured is unnecessary. The Yama Lords of Death are but arisen from the natural energy of your own awareness and really lack all substantiality. Voidness cannot injure voidness. Except insofar as they arise from the natural creativity of your own awareness, you must firmly decide that all that you see, the mild and fierce deities, the Harukas, the animal-headed angels, the rainbow lights, and the Yama deities, none is substantially, objectively existent. Once you understand that, then all the fears and terrors become liberated on the spot. You dissolve into non-duality and become a Buddha. If you so recognize them, you must feel intense faith, thinking, they are my archetype deities. They have come to escort me through the straits of the between. I take refuge in them. Be mindful of the three jewels. Remember whoever is your archetype deity. Call him or her by name. Pray to him or her, I am wandering lost in the between, be my savior. Hold me with your compassion. O precious deity. Call on your spiritual teacher by name, praying, I am wandering lost in the between, be my savior. For compassion's sake, do not let me go. Feel faith in the Haruka deity host, and pray to them. When I wander in the life cycle driven by powerful instincts, may the host of mild and fierce lords lead me on the path of the clear light that conquers terror visions of hate and fear. May the fierce Ishvari goddess hosts back me on the way, deliver me from the dangerous straits of the between, and carry me to perfect Buddhahood. Now that I wander alone, apart from my loved ones, and all my visions are but empty images, may the Buddhas exert the force of their compassion and stop the fear and hate-drawn terrors of the between. When the five lights of brilliant wisdom dawn, fearless, bravely, may I know them as myself. When the forms of the Lords mild and fierce arise, bold and fearless, may I recognize the between. Now when I suffer by the power of negative evolution, may the archetype deities dispel that suffering. When reality crashes with 1,000 thunders, may they all become Om Mani Padme Hum. When I'm pulled by evolution without recourse, may the compassionate Lord provide me refuge. When I suffer due to evolutionary instincts, may the clear light bliss Samadhi dawn upon me. May the five main elements not arise as enemies. May I behold the pure lands of the five Buddha clans. Thus you should pray with intense reverence and faith. It is extremely important, since your fear and terror will thus disappear, and you will surely become a Buddha in the beatific body. Do not waver. You should read these instructions 3 or 7 times. Thereby, however great the sins, however negative the evolutionary momentum, it is impossible for the deceased not to become liberated. Yet, however these are employed, if there is no recognition of the light, it will be necessary to wander in the third between, the existence between. So the orientation for it is taught in detail below. People in general, whether slightly or greatly experienced, feel confusion and panic at the point of death. There is no recourse for them other than this great book of natural liberation through understanding in the between. Those highly familiar with clear light reality come to the path of reality immediately on the parting of matter and mind. Those who have recognized the light of reality in their awareness while still alive and have true realization have the greatest strength when the clear light dawns in the death point between. So practice while living is very important. Further, those who while living have meditated on the creation and perfection stages of tantric deities have very great strength when the mild and fierce visions dawn in the reality between. So it is very important during your life to cultivate your mind with this book of natural liberation. You should practice this. You should read it. You should recite it. You should understand it. You should memorize it accurately. You should rehearse it 3 times a day without fail. You should become very clear about its words and meaning. You should not forget them even if chased by 100 murderers. This is the great natural liberation through understanding in the between. Even if a person who has committed the 5 unpardonable sins were just to hear it, he would surely be liberated. Therefore read it in the middle of the great marketplace and spread it widely. Even if you hear it just once like this and do not yet understand its meaning, since the intellect becomes 9 times clearer in the between, you will remember it at that time without forgetting even a single word. Therefore, you should proclaim it in the hearing of all while they are still living. You should read it at the pillow of every sick person. You should read it beside every corpse. You should spread it extensively. Whoever encounters this has a very positive destiny. It is very hard for anyone to encounter this who does not have great stores of merit and wisdom, and who has not cleared away their emotional and intellectual obscurations. All will be liberated who understand this, as long as they do not adopt any misguided views. Therefore, this teaching should be cherished as extremely precious. It is the quintessence of all teachings. Orientation to the existence between. With deep reverence I bow to the deity host of spiritual mentors, archetypes, and angels. I pray you to free me in the between. From the Book of Natural Liberation, the reality between has already been taught. Now, for the existence between, the prayer is to be performed as follows. The existence between is the between that ensues when a person has failed to accept the invitation of the 5 wisdoms in either calm or terrific forms, to leave the ordinary life cycle and enter into the boundless lifestyle of enlightenment. It is called existence because the appetite for ordinary existence has determined that, almost inevitably, there will be one. It is still possible for liberation to be attained, and the guide still urges that possibility. But there also is a note of concern for the quality of the coming life. If a further ordinary existence is inevitable, then at least it should be a good one with favorable circumstances, in a pleasant environment, with good opportunities for study and practice of the Dharma teachings, and, thereby, evolutionary advancement. Basic introduction. You may have already given the reality between orientation many times, and persons with great experience and positive evolutionary momentum may have already recognized the light. Still, people with only slight experience and heavy sins, being caught by terror and negative evolution, will find it difficult to recognize the light. So from the 10th day on, you should also perform this prayer of the existence between. You should make offerings to the 3 jewels. You should recite the prayer help from the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Then, calling the deceased by name 3 or 7 times, you should say the following. Hey, noble one. Listen well, and keep this in your mind. In hell, heaven, and the between, the body is born by apparition. But when the perceptions of the mild and fierce deities arose in the reality between, you did not recognize them. So after 5.5 days, you fainted with terror. Upon awakening, your awareness became more clear, and you immediately arose in a likeness of your former body. As it says in the Tantra, having the fleshly form of the preceding and emerging lives, senses all complete, moving unobstructed, with evolutionary magic powers, one sees similar species with pure clairvoyance. The Tantra is not identified, but can be presumed to be one of the Guhyagarbha Tantras. The quotation is treated as if it had authority. The following sections are presented as commentary on the passage. It is obviously a locus classicus of description of the between-state embodiment. Here proceeding means that you arise as if in a flesh and blood body, determined by the instincts of your preceding life. If you are radiant and have traces of the auspicious bodily signs and marks of a mythic hero, it is because your imagination can transform your body. Thus, that perceived in the between is called a mental body. The body in the between is made of subtle energy, like a holographic image. Thus, the imagination functions concretely to hold it together. If one has a stabilized and focused imagination, one can reshape the body just by a thought. Thus, if one's instincts during life have been shaped by deep identification with a mythic archetype, one can easily transform into such a hero in the between state. This is the purpose of the creation stage visualization practices, using various archetype deities. It is to focus and train the imagination so that it can perform a vital, life-shaping function in this between-state context. At that time, if you are to be born as a god, you will have visions of the heavens. If you are to be born as a titan, a human, an animal, a pretan, or a hell being, you will have visions of whichever realm you will be born in. Proceeding here means that for up to 4.5 days you experience yourself as having a fleshly body of your previous life with its habitual instincts. Emerging means that you begin to have visions of the place where you are heading for rebirth. So much for proceeding and emerging. Therefore, do not follow after every vision that happens. Don't be attached to it. Don't adhere to it. If you are stubborn and attached to all of them, you will roam in suffering through the 6 realms. Up until yesterday, the visions of the reality between dawned for you, but you did not recognize them. So you have had to wander here now. So now, if, without wavering, you can develop recognition, the spiritual teacher's orientation can open your awareness of the clear light, the naked, pure, vibrant void. Enter into it, relax into the experience of non-holding, non-doing. Without having to enter a womb, you will be liberated. If you do not recognize the light, then meditate that your spiritual teacher or archetype deity is present on the crown of your head, and devote yourself totally with a strong force of faith. It is so important. Do it without wavering, again and again. So you should say, if the deceased recognizes the light at this point, she will not wander in the 6 realms, and will be liberated. Powers and problems of a between being. If the power of negative evolution still makes recognition of the light difficult, you should again speak as follows. Hey, noble one. Listen without your mind wandering. Senses all complete, moving unobstructed means that even if in life you were blind, deaf, crippled, and so on, now in the between, your eyes clearly discern forms, your ears hear sounds, and so forth. Your senses become flawlessly clear and complete, So, senses all complete. Recognize this as a sign that you have died and are wandering in the between. Remember your personal instructions. Hey, noble one. What is unobstructed is your mental body, your awareness is free from embodiment, and you lack a solid body. So now you can move hither and thither everywhere, through walls, houses, land, rocks, and earth, even through Meru, the axial mountain, except through a mother's womb and the Vajra throne at Bodh. This is a sign that you are wandering in the existence between, so remember the instructions of your spiritual teacher. Pray to the Lord of great compassion. The between being cannot pass through a mother's womb because that is the place where he or she will take rebirth. A being that can go through mountains cannot get through that delicate membrane. The Vajra throne at Bodh is the place where supreme emanation body Buddhas attain enlightenment in this world, and the place is believed to have a special physical density, as well as a special sanctity. So no between being can pass through it. Hey, noble one. With evolutionary magic powers means that you, who have no special abilities or meditational magic powers whatsoever, now have magic powers arising as the result of your evolution. In a split second, you can circle this 4-continent planet with its axial mountain. You now have the power just to think about any place you wish, and you will arrive there in that very instant. You can reach anywhere and return just as a normal man stretches out and pulls back his arm. But these various magic powers are not so miraculous. If you don't specially need them, ignore them. You should not worry about whether or not you can manifest this or that, which you may think of. The fact is you have the ability to manifest anything without any obstruction. You should recognize this as a sign of the existence between. You should pray to your spiritual teacher. The person in the between state naturally has all these supernormal abilities. However, they should not become a diversion, a distraction from the main issue of the between, the opportunity to attain liberation from the compulsive lifestyle by confronting the nature of reality, or at least, the opportunity to obtain a new life favorable to such an attainment, avoiding any horrid states or lives shorn of liberty and opportunity. Hey, noble one. One sees similar species with pure clairvoyance means that beings of the same species in the between can see each other. Thus if some beings are of the same species, all going to be reborn as gods, they will see each other. Likewise, other beings of the same species, to be reborn in whichever of the 6 realms, will see each other. So you should not be attached to such encounters. Meditate on the Lord of great compassion. With pure clairvoyance refers also to the vision of those whose pure clairvoyance has been developed by the practice of contemplation, as well as to the vision of those whose divine power of merit has developed it. But such yogis or deities cannot always see between beings. They see them only when they will to see them, and not when they do not, or when their contemplation is distracted. If a clairvoyant were forced to perceive all between beings around, she would have no time to see anything else. Infinite numbers of beings of all species are dying and traversing the between all the time, and their subtle embodiments can effortlessly penetrate solid objects or coexist in the same coarse space with other things. Therefore, they are everywhere evident to one with clairvoyant abilities, whether natural or developed. What many cultures refer to as ghosts clearly fit the description of the between state wanderer, which is why the Pretan, who has become reborn in that horrid form, should not be translated hungry ghost. Indeed, The hero in the recent film Ghost is presented as having many of the characteristics of the Betwinming. Hey, noble one. As you have such a ghostly body, you encounter relatives in familiar places as if in a dream. When you meet these relatives, though you communicate with them, they do not answer. When you see your relatives and dear ones crying, you will think, now I have died, what can I do? You feel a searing pain, like a fish flopping in hot sand. But however greatly you suffer, tormenting yourself at this time does not help. If you have a spiritual teacher, pray to your spiritual teacher. Or else pray to the compassionate archetype deity. Don't be attached to your loved ones, it is useless. Pray to the compassionate ones, and do not suffer or be terrified. Hey, noble one. Driven by the swift wind of evolution, your mind is helpless and unstable, riding the horse of breath like a feather blown on the wind, spinning and fluttering. You tell the mourners, don't cry. Here I am. They take no notice, and you realize you have died, and you feel great anguish. Now do not indulge in your pain. There is a constant twilight, gray as the pre-dawn autumn sky, neither day nor night. That kind of between can last for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7 weeks up to 49 days. Though it is said that for most people the suffering of the existence between lasts 21 days, this is not always certain due to people's different evolutionary histories. This disclaimer of precision and timing comes as something of a relief. The time and the death point between has been mentioned above as seeming to be 4.5 days of unconsciousness to the ordinary person, though developed practitioners can prolong it indefinitely. Then there are 12 days mentioned in the reality between. If you add the 21 days of the existence between, you have a total of 37.5 days. Then there is the traditional number of 49 days, mentioned in various Buddhist sources. The bottom line is that waking reality timelines cannot convey with precision the experience of the between. Now begins the experience of the existence between. The fierce deity apparitions in the reality between were interventions by the compassionate deities into a level of the person's consciousness where primal impulses were lodged. Powerful emotions were stirred up in those areas of being. Now, the person's conviction about the substantiality of reality and attachment to the ordinary, delusion-driven lifestyle have been so persistent that a further birth in the realm of ordinary existence appears imminent. It is only natural, then, that this threshold is attended by psychic simulations of the most dramatic and terrifying sort of experiences. Hey, noble one. At this time the great red wind of evolution will drive you from behind, fiercely, unbearably, terrifyingly. Don't be afraid of it. It is your own hallucination. A frightening thick darkness draws you from the front, irresistibly. You are terrified by harsh cries, such as strike, kill. Don't be afraid of them. Heavy sinners will see cannibal ogres brandishing many weapons, shouting war cries, kill, kill, and strike, strike. You will see ferocious wild animals. You will be hunted by troops in blizzards, storms, and fogs. You will hear sounds of avalanches, flood waters, forest fires, and hurricanes. In panic you will escape by any means, only to stop short on the brink of falling down a yawning triple abyss, red, black, and white, bottomless and horrifying. Hey, noble one. It is not really an abyss. It is lust, hate, and delusion. You should recognize this as the moment of the existence between. Call upon the Lord of great compassion and pray intensely, O Lord of great compassion. Spiritual teacher. 3 jewels. I am named so and so, please don't abandon me to the horrid states. Don't forget me. Those who have gathered merit, virtuous and sincere in Dharma practice, are entertained with various delights and enjoy various excellent pleasures. And those dominated by delusion, who have neither strong virtue nor strong vice, have neither happiness nor suffering, but feel only stupefaction and indifference. O noble one, whatever happens along those lines, don't crave. Don't long for pleasures or joys. Offer them all to the jewel of the spiritual teacher. Abandon attachment to them. Even without any visions of pleasure or pain, with only feelings of indifference, set the mind on the experience of the Great Seal, free of both concentration and distraction. That is most important. Hey, noble one. At that time, structures such as bridges, temples, cathedrals, huts, and stupas will seem to shelter you for a moment, but don't cling to them at length. Since your mind lacks a body, it cannot settle down. You feel cold, you become angry and distraught, and your awareness seems erratic, volatile, and unsteady. Then you will have the thought, now I have died, what can I do? Your heart will feel cold and weak. You will feel fierce and boundless suffering. The fact is you must travel and cannot be attached to any one place. So don't worry about it, and let your mind come to rest. From now on you have no food except for what is dedicated for you. There is no certainty about your friends. These are signs of your mental body wandering in the existence between. Your present joys and sorrows are determined by your evolution. When you see your lands, friends, loved ones, and your own corpse, and you think, now I have died, what can be done? At that time, your mental body feels greatly stressed. The guide here implicitly accepts the magical efficacy of food ritually dedicated to a deceased person, that a portion of food set out for the recently deceased can provide the between state embodiment, a sense of nourishment. The guide reminds the deceased that her body is mental, made by pure imagery. Her sensation of feeling hungry, weak, and distressed is purely mental. You think, how nice it would be to have a new body. Then you will have visions of looking everywhere for a body. Even if you try up to 9 times to enter your old corpse, due to the length of the reality between, in the winter it will have frozen, in the summer it will have rotted. Otherwise, your loved ones will have burned it or buried it or given it to birds and beasts, so it affords no place to inhabit. You will feel sick at heart and will have visions of being squeezed between boulders, stones, and dirt. This kind of suffering is in the nature of the existence between. Even if you find a body, there will be nothing other than such suffering. So give up longing for a body. Focus yourself undistractedly in the experience of creative non-action. Having been oriented in this way, she can attain liberation in this between. Encountering the Lord of Death. If by the force of negative evolution she does not recognize the light of reality in spite of being so oriented, you should again call the deceased by name and say the following. Hey, noble one. You named so and so, listen to me. This suffering of yours comes from your own evolutionary acts. There is no one else to blame. It is your own evolution, so pray strongly to the 3 jewels. They can protect you. If you don't pray to them, don't know how to meditate on the Great Seal, and don't meditate on an archetype deity, then your native angel will count out a white stone for each virtue you accumulated, and your native demon will count out a black stone for every sin. This refers to the popular belief in Buddhist societies, probably from ancient tradition, that each person has a personal angel and a personal demon who are born together with him, who push for good and evil, respectively, and count out his good and evil deeds. These then turn informers after death and count out the person's tally of good and evil acts before the tribunal of Yama, Lord of Death. Then you will be very worried, angry, and terrified. Trembling, you will lie, saying, "I committed no sins." But then Yama, the judge of the dead, will say, "I will look into the mirror of evolution." When he looks into the mirror of evolution, all your sins and virtues will clearly and distinctly appear therein. Your lies will not help. Yama will tie a rope around your neck and lead you away. He will cut off your head, rip out your heart, pull out your guts, lick your brains, drink your blood, eat your flesh, and gnaw your bones. But since you cannot die, even though your body is cut to pieces, you revive again. Being cut up again and again, you will suffer immense pain. So when the white stones are being counted, don't be afraid, don't panic, do not lie. Don't fear Yama. Your body is mental, so even if it is killed and cut up, you cannot die. In fact, your form is the void itself, so you have nothing to fear. The Yama deities are your own hallucinations, and themselves are forms of the void. Your own instinctual mental body is void. Voidness cannot harm voidness. Signlessness cannot harm signlessness. You should recognize that there is nothing other than your own hallucination. There is no external, substantially existent Yama, angel, demon, or bull-headed ogre, and so on. You must recognize all this as the between. Two levels of reassurance are contained here. First is the relative or circumstantial reassurance that the dreamlike mental body of the between has no coarse flesh, blood, or nerves, and therefore cannot be hurt as substantially as can a coarse reality body. The second is more profound and provides reassurance on the ultimate level. In the non-dual reality wherein form or matter is voidness, and voidness is form or matter, all things are what they are only because the routinized imagination perceives them to be so. All experiences are like a dream, none of them are intrinsically substantial, and so a liberated person can reshape his environment and experience as easily as a dreamer can imagine himself out of a nightmare. All that is necessary is for the dreamer to become conscious that he is in a dream and either reshape the dream into a better state or else simply awaken. Meditate on the samadhi of the Great Seal. Here meditation in the ultimate non-duality of form and voidness, in the form of bliss void indivisible, is recommended, just for good measure. If you don't know how to meditate, examine carefully whatever terrifies you and see the voidness that is its lack of objective status. That is the natural body of truth. And that voidness is not merely an annihilation. Your triumphant, distinct awareness of the terror of the void is itself the blissful mind of the body of beatitude. Voidness and clarity are indistinguishable. The actuality of the void is clarity. The actuality of clarity is voidness. Your awareness of voidness, clarity indivisible, is stripped naked, and now you abide in the unfabricated experience. That is the wisdom body of truth. And that spontaneously and unobstructedly arises anywhere. And that is the body of compassionate emanation. This is a brief instruction in the most advanced form of understanding and meditation, the Great Perfection or Great Seal. In normal reality, it would be pointless to instruct a person gripped with terror in such an exalted awareness. For the between being, however, the guide feels it worthwhile to bring this up, since the between consciousness is so radically mutable and transformable, and there is always the chance that the between being can instantly shift straight into the utter actuality of her own reality. As for the four bodies of Buddhahood, it is developed from the three bodies by dividing the truth body into subjective, wisdom, and objective, natural, aspects. Hey, noble one! Behold this without wavering. Recognize it. You will definitely become a Buddha, the perfection of the four bodies. Do not be distracted. This is the borderline between a Buddha and an ordinary being. Now is the time described as one instant alienated, one instant perfectly enlightened. Until yesterday you were given to distraction, you did not recognize what arose as the between, and you were gripped by so much terror. If you again surrender to distraction, the cord of compassion will be cut, and you will go into the abodes that lack all freedom, so be careful. This is the first time there has been a mention of cutting of the cord of compassion. The guide here is trying to stir up the consciousness of the between being, which so far has still refused to awaken from involvement in the ordinary life impulse. Perhaps unconsciously he is relying on the compassion of the enlightened beings, thinking that they will save him whatever he does. So the guide is indicating that the connection with the enlightened beings can be experientially severed by persistent illusion on the between beings' part. If you orient them in this way, even those who did not recognize before will now recognize the light of reality and will be liberated. If the deceased had lived as a negative person and does not know how to reflect in such a way, you should say again, "Hey, noble one." If you don't know to meditate thus, then remember and pray to the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha, and the compassionate lords. Contemplate all the terrors and visions as the compassionate lord or your own archetype deity. Remember your esoteric initiation name and the spiritual teacher who gave you the initiations you received in the human realm. Proclaim them to Yama, the Lord of Truth. You won't be injured even if you fall off cliffs, so abandon fear and hate. When you pronounce this orientation, those still unliberated will become liberated. Detachment from the previous life. As it is still possible the deceased will not recognize the light and will not be liberated, and because persistence is important, call the deceased by name again and say as follows. The present visions will propel you into the hardship of the changing states of pleasure and pain, as if flung by a catapult. So do not become absorbed in any visions of love or hate. Even when you are about to be born in the higher estates, when the visions of the higher estates arise, should the relatives you have left behind begin to make sacrifices with the slaughter of living beings, to dedicate them to the Lord of Death, you will have many impure visions and begin to feel fierce anger. In some religions, people sacrifice animals out of the conviction that the life of the animal can be offered to a dread deity as a substitute for the life of a loved one, usually living and perhaps threatened by illness or other danger. It may also be considered in some societies that the offering of an animal life to a protective deity can influence positively the destiny of a deceased loved one. Buddhism has always abhorred such practices, considering them to accomplish the opposite of the desired effect. They harm the animal sacrificed, of course, award to the sacrificer the negative effect of the sin of killing, and cause even more harm to the supposed beneficiary by stirring up their own negative emotions. In Tibet, some of the followers of some forms of the bone religion, or else certain tribespeople on the frontiers who still follow animistic practices, might perform or commission such an animal sacrifice. Conditioned by that, you will be reborn in hell. So no matter what actions are committed among the surviving, do not become angry, but contemplate love. Or, if you yourself have great attachment to the wealth and possessions you left behind, or if you know that others are using your possessions, you will feel attached to them and angry at the people who are using them. Conditioned by that, even though you might have attained the high estates, you will be reborn in hell or in the Pretan realm. Therefore, even if you are attached to your old possessions, you have no power to own them anymore. They are of no use to you at all. Abandon fondness and attachment for your possessions left behind. Totally throw them away. Be decisive. Whoever uses your things, don't be stingy. Let go of them in your mind. Generate a one-pointed will to offer them to the spiritual teacher and the three jewels, and abide in the experience of detachment and unconcern. When death rites, such as exorcistic food offering rites, or other rites that purify the dangers of the horrid states, are performed for your sake, and, with your subtle evolutionary clairvoyance, you perceive the performers being inaccurate, sleepy, or distracted, breaking their vows and commitments, and acting carelessly, and you notice their lack of faith, distorted views, fearful negative actions, and impure practices, then you think, alas, these people are betraying me. They are surely letting me down. You become depressed, you become disgusted. You lose your positive attitude and all respect, and you become cynical and disillusioned. Conditioned by that, you will be reborn in the horrid states, and thus their actions, rather than helping you, will harm you greatly. So whatever your surviving relatives perform in the way of incorrect religious rites, you must think, well, my perception is certainly imperfect. How can any impurity adhere to the Buddha's teaching? I see these as a result of my own negative attitude, like seeing the mirror's faults as if in my own form. The bodies of these performers are the Sangha, their speech is the holy Dharma, their minds are the actual Buddha, so I must take refuge in them. So you must respect them and project your most positive attitude upon them. Then whatever your dear ones do for you will definitely help you. Such keeping of a positive attitude is very important, so do it without forgetting. Again, even if you are heading for rebirth in the three horrid states, when the visions of the horrid states arise, when you see the pure virtue, unsullied with sins, performed by your surviving relatives, and when you see the perfect physical, verbal, and mental practices of your spiritual teachers and mentors, then, when you are compelled to rebirth, your feeling of great delight has the invaluable benefit of lifting you up into the higher estates, just as you were about to be reborn in the horrid states. So be very careful, as it is so important for you to construct a positive attitude of reverence and faith, and not allow any place for impure negativity of perception. Hey, noble one. In short, since your present between consciousness is highly unstable, volatile, and mobile, and virtuous or vicious perception is very powerful, don't think at all about any unvirtuous evolution, and remember your own virtuous practice. If you have no virtuous practice, then adopt a positive perception and feel faith and reverence. Pray to your archetype deity and to the Lord of Compassion. With intense willpower, perform this prayer. Now that I wander alone, without my loved ones, and all my visions are but empty images, may the Buddhas exert the force of their compassion and stop the fear and hate-drawn terrors of the between. Now, when I suffer by the power of negative evolution, may my archetype deities dispel my suffering. When reality crashes with 1,000 thunders, may they all become Om Mani Padme Hum. When I'm pulled by evolution without recourse, may the Lords mild and fierce dispel my suffering. When I suffer due to evolutionary instincts, may clear light bliss samadhi arise for me. Thus perform this fervent prayer. It will surely guide you on the path. It is crucial that you decide it is sure not to let you down. When you say this, the deceased should become aware, recognize the light, and attain liberation, avoiding the dull lights to block rebirth. Even though you say this many times, it may still be hard for recognition to arise due to the power of strong negative evolution. There is great benefit in further repetition. Calling the deceased by name, you should say as follows: Hey, noble one. If you have not recognized the clear light by remembering what we have already said, from now your sense of your body from the preceding life will become vague, and your sense of your body of the emerging life will become more distinct. Then you will feel sad and think, I am suffering, so now I will seek whatever body comes along. Then you will move toward whatever appears, gradually and uncertainly, and the 6 lights of the 6 realms will dawn. The realm toward which evolution impels your rebirth will dawn most clearly. Hey, noble one. Listen to me. What are the 6 lights? The dull white light of the gods will dawn, and also the red light of the titans, the blue light of the humans, the green light of the animals, the yellow light of the pretans, and the dull smoky light of the hells. All these will dawn. These are the 6 lights. So your body's color will become that of the light of the realm of rebirth. Hey, noble one. At that time the essence of the instruction is very important. Contemplate the particular light that arises as the Lord of great compassion. When the light arises, hold the thought, it is the Lord of great compassion. This is the extremely profound key of instruction. This is crucial to block rebirth. One of the 6 dull lights emerges in the deceased's awareness at this point to indicate the realm of his rebirth. The trick here is not to accept that light as leading to that realm, but to align that light itself with the Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara, the Lord of great compassion, Jesus for the Christian, Krishna for the Hindu, the Prophet for the Muslim, the most beloved figure for the secularist. Again, meditate long and carefully that, whoever your archetype deity is, he or she appears like a magic illusion, lacking intrinsic reality. It is called the pure magic body. Then, contemplate that archetype deity as dissolving from the edges inward, and enter the experience of not holding rigidly to the insubstantial, the clear light of voidness. Again contemplate that as the archetype deity. Again contemplate it as clear light. Thus meditating deity and clear light in alternation, then let your own awareness dissolve from the edges, where space pervades, let awareness pervade. Where awareness pervades, let the truth body pervade. Enter comfortably into the experience of the ceaseless non-proliferation of the truth body. Having aligned the dull light of one of the realms with the Lord of Compassion, here the deceased is instructed in something more advanced, In contemplating the non-duality of the supreme integration of magic body and clear light, he contemplates the form of the archetype deity as magic illusion, as a dream apparition. He then dissolves the image into transparency and contemplates that as the deity. He then alternates contemplating the deity as magic body and as transparency, oscillating toward contemplating their non-duality. He then contemplates his subjective awareness of deity transparency integration as itself dissolving, contemplating the non-duality of insentient space and awareness, voidness and clarity. He then rests in the inconceivable integration of the truth body, as the integration of voidness and awareness, magic body and clear light. The truth body does not proliferate or fabricate anything because it already is everything. It is the actual reality of everything in every possible state. Again, Padmasambhava guides even the most ordinary between being in the highest possible meditation, showing that he takes most seriously the concept that a person's between awareness is 9 times more intelligent than his ordinary coarse awareness of the previous life. From within that experience, rebirth is prevented and enlightenment is attained. Blocking the door of the womb. Those whose practice was weak and inexpert will still not recognize the light. They will err and wander to the door of a womb. Since for them the instruction about blocking the door of the womb is very important, call the deceased by name and say as follows: "Hey, noble one. If you have not understood from the above, at this time, by power of evolution, the vision will arise of your proceeding upward, on the level, or downward with head hanging. Now meditate on the Lord of great compassion. Remember him. Then, as already explained, you will have visions of hurricanes, blizzards, hailstorms, dense fogs, and being chased by many men, and you will seem to escape. Those without merit will seem to escape to a miserable place, but those with merit will seem to escape to a happy place. At that time, noble one, all the signs will arise showing the continent and place where you will be reborn. For this time there are many profound keys of instruction, so listen carefully. Even though you did not recognize freedom from the previous keys of orientation, here even those of the weakest practice can recognize freedom through the following keys, so listen. Now, here, the method of blocking the womb door is very effective and important. There are 2 methods of blocking that door: blocking the entering person and blocking the womb door entered. First, the instruction for blocking the enterer. Blocking the womb door refers to using the natural liberation art relaxed, focusing on the presence of the archetype or patron deity as indivisible from the natural transparency of all things as a way of intervening in the mechanical processes of assuming rebirth. Hey, noble one. You named so and so. Clearly visualize your archetype deity appearing like magic without intrinsic reality like the moon in water. If you are unsure about your archetype deity, then vividly envision Avalokiteshvara, thinking, he is the Lord of great compassion. Then dissolve the archetype from the edges and contemplate the void clear light transparency of ultimate non-perception. That is the profound key. Using it, the Buddhas said, the womb will not be entered, so meditate in that way. But if this still does not block the way and you are just about to enter a womb, there is the profound instruction to block the door of the womb about to be entered. So listen. Repeat after me the following from the root verses of the 6 betweens. Hey. Now when the existence between dawns upon me, I will hold my will with mind one pointed, and increase forcefully the impulse of positive evolution. Blocking the womb door, I will remember to be revulsed. Now courage and positive perception are essential. I will give up envy and contemplate all couples as my spiritual mentor, father and mother. Repeat this loud and clear and stir your memory. It is important to meditate on its meaning and put it into practice. As for its meaning, now when the existence between dawns upon me, means that you are now wandering within the existence between. A sign of that is that when you look in water you will not see your reflection. You have no shadow. You have no substantial flesh and blood body. These are signs that your mental body is wandering in the existence between. Now you must hold one pointed in your mind, the unwavering willpower. This one-pointed will is of chief importance. It is like reins to guide a horse. You can achieve whatever your will intends, so don't open your mind to negative evolution, but remember the teachings, instructions, initiations, authorizations, and inspirations you received in the human realm, such as this great book of natural liberation through understanding in the between, and intensify the result of all good evolutionary actions. This is very important. Don't forget it. Don't be distracted. This is the exact time that determines whether you go up or you go down. Now is the time when indulgence in laziness definitely will bring on suffering. Now is the time when one-pointed positive willpower definitely brings on happiness. Hold one-pointed goodwill in your mind. Sustain forcefully the result of good action. Now is the time to block the door of the womb. As the root verse says, blocking the womb door, remember to be revulsed. Now courage and positive perception are essential. That time is now. You should block the door of the womb. There are 5 methods to block the womb door. Fix them well in your mind. Hey, noble one. At this time you will have visions of couples making love. When you see them, don't enter between them, but stay mindful. Visualize the males and females as the teacher, father and mother, prostrate to them, and make them visualized offerings. Feel intense reverence and devotion. Aim a strong will to request them to teach the Dharma, and the womb door will definitely be blocked. If that does not block it, and you are about to enter the womb, then visualize them as mentor father mother, archetype deity father and mother, or compassion lord father and mother. Offer them visualized offerings. Form the powerful intention to receive spiritual attainments from them, and that will block the womb door. If that does not block it, and you are again about to enter a womb, then third there is the instruction for reversing lust and hate. There are 4 modes of birth: egg birth, womb birth, magic birth, and warm moisture birth. Egg birth and womb birth are alike. As before, you begin to see males and females engaged in lovemaking. If you enter the womb under the influence of lust and hate, whether you are reborn as horse, bird, dog, or human, if you are going to be male, you arise appearing to be male, you feel strong hate toward the father, and attraction and lust toward the mother. If you are going to be female, you appear as a female, you feel strong envy and jealousy toward the mother, you feel strong longing and lust for the father. Conditioned by that, you enter the path of the womb. You experience orgasmic bliss in the center of the union between white and red drops, and within the experience of that bliss, you faint and lose consciousness. Your body develops through the embryonic stages of custard gelatin and so forth. Eventually you will be born outside the mother's womb. Once your eyes are open, you realize you have been born a puppy. Having been a human, now you are a dog. In the dog's kennel, you suffer. Or in the pig's sty, or in the anthill, or in the wormhole, or in the herds of cows or goats or sheep born there, you cannot return to the human state. Being extremely stupid, in the state of delusion you suffer various miseries. In this way you will cycle through the hells and the pretan realms, and will be tortured by limitless suffering. There is nothing more powerful, nothing more terrible than this. Alas! Alas! Those lacking the holy spiritual teacher's instruction fall down this deep abyss into the life cycle. They are tormented uninterruptedly by unbearable sufferings. So listen to what I say. Hold my personal instruction in your mind. Now I will teach you an instruction to close the womb door by reversing lust and hate. Listen to it and remember it. As the verse says, blocking the door of the womb, I will remember to be revulsed. Now courage and positive perception are essential. I will give up envy and contemplate all couples as my spiritual mentor, father and mother. As before, you will have strong feelings of envy. If reborn as a male, you will lust for the mother and hate the father. If reborn as a female, you will lust for the father and hate the mother. For that time, there is this profound instruction. Hey, noble one. When such lust and hate arise, meditate like this. Alas! Such a creature of negative evolution as myself will wander in the life cycle under the influence of lust and hate. If I still persist in lust and hate, I will know no end to my wanderings. I am in danger of being sunk forever in the ocean of miseries. Now I must give up lust and hate entirely. Alas! I must hold intensely the one-pointed will never to entertain lust and hate. The Tantras state that this meditation itself will close the door of the womb. Hey, noble one. Don't waver. Hold your will one-pointed in your mind. Even though you have done that, if the womb door did not close and you are about to enter the womb, you should block the womb door by the instruction of truthless magical illusion. Meditate as follows. Male and female, father and mother, the thunderstorm, the hurricane, the thunder, terrifying visions, all phenomena are naturally like magical illusions. However they arise, they are truthless. All things are untrue and false. Like mirages. Impermanent. Non-eternal. Why be attached to them? Why fear and hate them? It is to see nothing as something. All of these are but visions of my mind. The mind itself is as originally non-existent as a magical illusion. So where out there do they come from? Since I never understood this in the past, I held the non-existent to exist. I held the untrue to be true. I held illusion as truth. So for this long time I wandered in the life cycle. If I still now do not recognize the illusoriness of things, I will wander even longer in the life cycle, and I will be stuck in the quicksand of various miseries. So now I will recognize all these things as like a dream, a magical illusion, an echo, a fairy city, a mirage, a reflection, an optical illusion, the moon in water, lacking even a moment's truth status, definitely untrue and false. Truth status is the state of something's existing by virtue of its intrinsic reality. If things were not empty, if they existed by virtue of a fixed absolute real core, then that core would be discovered by truth-seeking scientific awareness, and those things would be acknowledged as possessing truth status. The involuntary habit of all beings is to assume that things do have such status. When we see a thing, it seems to us to exist in its own right, as an independently established thing in itself. This habitual perception is called our truth habit. It is equivalent to our misknowledge, the root of all our delusionary existence. The Buddha's key liberative insight is that all things lack such truth status, and that therefore our truth habits are misguided. Our experience of this is called wisdom, and is the antidote for our delusionary grasping at life. Freedom from truth habits does not mean that our consciousness is annihilated, only that it is less grasping, less dominating, allowing things to be the relative, fleeting, dreamlike, fluid things that they are, and not insisting that they conform rigidly to our set of preconceived categories. This is the most advanced teaching of all. Though it is not complicated, it is emotionally challenging, as releasing the habitual perception of truth status in things can be frightening, can feel like succumbing to annihilation. Yet Padmasambhava again uses these advanced teachings for between beings, considering their extreme malleability, their ninefold intelligence, and their unique opportunity. Thus, holding these thoughts one-pointedly in mind, the truth habit erodes, and, as the resulting freedom is impressed in your continuum, the deeper self-habit is reversed. As you thus deeply understand cosmic unreality, the womb door will definitely be blocked. Yet even doing that, if the truth habit does not erode, the womb door is not blocked, and you are about to enter the womb, again there is a profound instruction. Hey, noble one. Even doing that, if the womb door is not blocked, now, fifth, you should block the womb door by meditating on the clear light. This is how to contemplate. Hey. All things are my own mind. That mind is voidness, free of creation and destruction. Thinking thus, do not artificially compose your mind. Like water being poured in water, let the mind flow into its own reality condition, release it into its own nature. Letting it relax easily and openly will decisively and definitely block the womb door for all four forms of rebirth. Thus meditate again and again until the womb door is blocked. Up to here, you have given many authentic and profound instructions for blocking the womb door. Using them, it should be impossible for any person, whether bright, mediocre, or dull, not to become liberated. Why is that? The deceased's Between consciousness has a mundane form of clairvoyance, so whatever you say, it can understand, experience, and embody. Even if persons were deaf and blind in life, in the between their faculties are complete, and they can understand whatever you say. They have hypermindfulness, being constantly overwhelmed by terror and panic, so they always listen to what you say. Their consciousness is without coarse embodiment, so wherever they aim their will, they reach immediately. They are easy to direct. Since their intelligence is 9 times more clear, even if persons were stupid in life, in the between, by the power of evolution, their intellect is extremely clear, and they have the quality of knowing how to meditate on whatever they understand. These are the key reasons why it is useful to perform prayers and rites of teaching for the deceased. They can be very important for them. And it is very important to make the effort to read this book of natural liberation during the 9 days after death. If the deceased is not liberated by means of one orientation, he or she will be liberated by another. That is why there are many different orientations. Choosing a good womb. Still, there are many beings who, due to slight familiarity with virtue, great, primal familiarity with non-virtue, and powerful sins and dense obscurations, though they are confronted by such concerns and hear the previous orientations, have not become liberated. If the womb door was not already blocked, you should teach them from now on the instructions on how to choose a womb. First, recite the prayer help from the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, take refuge in the three jewels, and conceive the spirit of enlightenment. Then call the deceased 3 times by name and say the following. Hey, noble one. You, the deceased named so and so, listen to me. All the previous instructions for orientation have been given to you, and still you do not understand. Now, since the womb door is not blocked, it is time to assume a body. You have many different authentic and profound instructions for the choosing of a womb. Hold them in your mind. Listen well with strong intent, and hold them in your mind. The instructions on choosing a womb are full of allusions to the ancient Buddhist cosmology, in which the planet consists of 4 main continents radiating outward from an axial mountain, with 8 subcontinents, all sitting within a huge surrounding ocean, ringed by numerous iron mountain ranges. The Pretan and Hell realms are far beneath the base of the mountain, and the many realms of the heavens radiate upward from the upper slopes of the mountain. This picture can be related to modern, round planet cosmology by thinking of the Earth's axis as the axial mountain, and the continents around the globe radiating outward from it. We can think of Videha, the eastern continent of the ancient cosmology, as Oceania, including Japan, the Philippines, Indonesia, Micronesia, Polynesia, down to New Zealand and Australia. Jambudvipa, the southern continent, corresponds to Asia in general, though it sometimes refers to the Indian subcontinent alone, Western Gardenia to the Middle East, Europe and Africa, and northern Kuru to the ancient Americas, around the planet from India. At that time, places of peace, long life, and comfortable prosperity, but little opportunity to attain ultimate liberation. Hey, noble one. Now signs and marks will arise about which continent you will be reborn in. Recognize them. Now you should explore where to be reborn. You should choose a continent. If you are reborn in eastern Videha, you will see lakes and waters adorned with male and female geese. Think of renunciation and do not go there. If you are born there, your situation will be comfortable, but you should not go there as the Dharma is not available there. If you are going to be reborn in the southern Jambudvipa, you will see beautiful and comfortable houses. If you can go there, do so. If you are to be reborn in western Gardenia, you will see lakes adorned with male and female horses. Turn back and do not go there. Although it is very enjoyable, the Dharma has not spread there, so do not go there. If you are going to be reborn in northern Kuru, you see lakes adorned with cattle or with evergreen trees. Recognize these as signs of being reborn there. Do not go there. Though you will have long life and much fortune there, the Dharma is not available there. Do not go there. If you are to be reborn as a god, you will see delightful, divine, multi-storied mansions made of various jewels. It is all right to dwell there, so you may enter there. If you are to be reborn as a titan, you will see a pleasant grove and spinning wheels of fire. Remember renunciation, and by all means do not go there. If you are to be reborn among the animals, you will see caves, ant holes, and grass huts, as if through a fog. Do not go there. If you are to be reborn as a Pretan, you will see charred stumps, black spots, dark ravines, darkness, and shadows. If you go there, reborn as a Pretan, you will experience various sufferings of hunger and thirst. So don't go there. Remember renunciation. Be fiercely courageous. If you are to be reborn in the hells, you will hear the songs of negative evolution, or you will feel a helpless need to go there, and you will have visions of an island of darkness, a black house or a red house, black pits, and black roads. If you go there, you will be stuck in the hells. You will experience unbearable pains of heat and cold. You will never escape. You must take every care not to get caught there. By any means, never enter there at all. Block the womb door and remember renunciation. Now is the time when that is essential. Padmasambhava seems almost to have given up getting the between being released from the ordinary life cycle into clear light transparency and is resigned to his being reborn. When he orders the deceased, don't go there. About one of the unpleasant or horrid states, he is calling for a final act of will and courage, a summoning of the power of renunciation, to recoil from the prospect of such a terrifying rebirth. He is quite aware, however, that a between being still caught in the currents of habitual drives and evolutionary momentum from former acts will not easily be able to reverse course at this point, not without heroic effort. Hey, noble one. Though you might wish not to go on, helplessly you are chased by the butchers of evolution. You find yourself powerless to stop, you must go on. Ahead of you are butchers and killers to drag you along. You will feel as if you are fleeing from overwhelming darkness, hurricanes, tempests, harsh noises, snow and rain, hailstorms, thunderstorms, and violent blizzards. Escaping in panic, you will seek a refuge, and you will feel safe in the previously mentioned beautiful houses, in rock caves, in earthen caverns, in forest thickets, within the round blossoms of lotuses and so forth. Hiding in such places, you will think, I must not leave here now. And feeling so anxious about losing your place, you will become very attached to it. Feeling so anxious about meeting the terrors of the between if you go out, hating those terrors, you hide within and assume no matter what kind of inferior body, and you will come to experience various sufferings. All that is the sign that demons and ogres are troubling you. There is a profound, crucial instruction for you at this time. Listen to it and hold it in your mind. At that time when you are helplessly chased by butchers and are overwhelmed by terror, instantaneously visualize all at once the Lord Kemchakharuka, Hayagriva, Vajrapani, and so forth, whoever is your archetype deity, gigantic in size, with bulging limbs, terrifying, furious, able to crush all demons to dust. By his blessing and compassion, you will free yourself from those butchers, and you will gain the power to choose a good womb. This is the authentic profound key of the instruction, so hold it in your mind. Kemchakharuka is the most powerful archetype deity in the old tantras of Padmasambhava's time. His most elaborate form has many heads, arms, and legs, and represents enlightenment in its adamantine triumph over evil in all directions. Hayagriva is the fierce dark red form of the Lord of Compassion, Avalokiteshvara, usually distinguished by a small green horse's head emerging from the crown of his head. Vajrapani is a deep blue fierce bodhisattva, considered the incarnation of the power of all Buddhas, with many different forms used in the contemplations of different practitioners. Here these most powerful archetype deities are invoked to provide a shock intervention, to slow the course of a between being's rebirth, not at this time to attain liberation, but to find a brief respite to change course and choose a better rebirth. For a person with no experience of an archetype deity, this is a moment to invoke the most powerful seraphim or cherubim that they can imagine, anything fierce and of overwhelming power that still can be thought of as a benevolent protector by the person. Hey, noble one. Further, the deities of the contemplation realms are reborn by the power of their samadhi. The majority of the demonic types, such as the pretans, by changing their self-images while in the between, manifest various magical transformations in bodies of pretans, demons, and ogres, and then become mental bodies just like them. The pretans of the underworld, the pretans of the sky realms, and the 80,000 types of demons adopt their bodies just by changing their self-concepts. At such a time, if you remember the import of voidness, the Great Seal, it is best. If you cannot, you should practice meditation on magical illusion. If you cannot do that, free of any kind of attachment to anything, you should meditate on the greatly compassionate archetype deity and attain enlightenment in the beatific body in the between. The contemplation realms are the four formless heavens. Infinite space, infinite consciousness, absolute nothingness, and beyond consciousness and unconsciousness. A being is born as a deity of those realms just by focused concentration in the samadhis by those names. Even lowly creatures such as pretans and various types of demons attain embodiment just by changing their self-images. Padmasambhava here exhorts the deceased to take responsibility for the power of her imagination, to realize that she can be whatever she wants, just by willing it to be so with enough determination and undistracted focus. And he reminds those who have archetype deity tantric practices to invoke those practices at this crucial juncture. Hey, noble one. Thus, if it becomes necessary by the power of evolution to enter the womb, you should now rely on the instruction for choosing the womb. Listen. Do not go to just any womb door that presents itself. If, due to the demonic butchers, you lose the power not to go, then meditate on Hayagriva. Since now you have subtle clairvoyance, you will be able to understand the nature of all places, so choose your place of rebirth wisely. There are two instructions, one for transmitting your soul into the pure Buddha lands, and one for choosing a womb door in the impure life cycle. You should now practice the following. If you are the most intelligent type of person, to perform the soul transmission to the angel realms, you should formulate the following controlling intention. Alas! I am sad that I have stayed here in this swamp of the life cycle for so long, beginninglessly for boundless, countless eons. Alas! During all the lifetimes of so many Buddhas, I have still not been liberated. I am revulsed and nauseated by this interminable life cycle. I am terrified of it. I totally repudiate it. I must now remember the methods of escaping it. I must now take miraculous rebirth in the blossom of a lotus, in the presence of the Buddha Amitabha in the Western Pure Land universe, Sukhavati the blissful. It is essential here to make great effort to aim all your willpower in this way toward the Western Pure Universe of Sukhavati. Whichever pure universe you have faith in, whether it is Amitabha's Sukhavati, Abharati, the delightful land of Ikshabhya, Ganavyuha, the pure land of Vairachana, Alakavati, the earthly paradise of Vaishravana, Padalaka, the earthly paradise of Avalokiteshvara, or the lotus light palace of Padmasambhava in Udhyana, if you aim your concentrated willpower at any one of these pure lands, and hold it one pointedly without distraction. You will be reborn immediately in that pure land. Further, if you wish to be reborn in the presence of the Dharma Lord Maitreya in the Tushita heaven, just aim your will, thinking, now that I am in this between, it is time to visit the Dharma Lord Maitreya in his Tushita realm. I will go there. You will be miraculously reborn in the heart of a lotus in the presence of Maitreya. The Pure Land universes, Buddha lands, or Buddhaverses, are universes existing in faraway dimensions, though with the miraculous power of travel of the between being with her mental body, and by the grace of the compassion of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, a between being can travel to them with the speed of thought. Sukhavati, Abharati, and Ganavyuha are Buddhaverses of the celestial variety. Sukhavati is the most famous of these, with several important sutras giving elaborate descriptions. Beings are born there in lotus buds, instead of wombs. Beings have angelic bodies therein, without sexual differentiation, and they draw pure energy from the atmosphere, with no need to eat or excrete. The land is made of jewel substances and is of the highest beauty. There is no danger and no unhappiness. The Buddha is always present to everyone within the land, and all are able to meditate with the greatest facility. Thus, the environment is ideally suited to the spiritual evolution of its inhabitants, from the point of view of their development of wisdom. On the other hand, our own universe is said to be the Buddhaverse of Shakyamuni Buddha, called Saha. In the Vimalakirti Sutra, it is said to be even more conducive to spiritual evolution than a celestial Buddhaverse, because of the immediacy of suffering, as well as the presence of teaching. Beings in our world can develop compassion as rapidly as wisdom, for compassion, being sensitivity to the suffering of others, requires proximity to that suffering in order to develop. There are also enlightenment-sustained paradises on earth, maintained by the field of compassion of a particular bodhisattva, deity, archetype, or adept. Vaishravana is a deity who became devoted to Buddhism during Shakyamuni's time on earth. His realm, Alakavati, is near the North Pole and is famous for its treasures. Vaishravana is perhaps the Santa Claus of popular Buddhist myth. Padalaka is on the west coast of southern India, hidden on top of a sacred mountain, and home to the bodhisattvas of Avalokiteshvara and Tara, as well as others in their retinue. Udayana is somewhere in the Afghan mountains, and is the magic residence of the retinue of Padmasambhava later, replaced in Tibetan myth by the Zangdog Pelri, Copper Mountain Paradise, somewhere in the southeast of India. Finally, Maitreya, the next Buddha to descend to earth in the future, dwells in Siddharma, a famous teaching paradise within a heaven called Tushita, which itself is a normal desire realm heaven with pleasure gods sporting about. Buddhist practitioners sometimes go to one of these celestial or earthly pure lands to take a rest from the ordinary life realms. At other times, they do not choose to visit them because they do not want to lose time in their evolutionary quest for full enlightenment, when they will be able to create a Buddhaverse of their own for the sake of others. A day in one such paradise might represent years in the ordinary realms. And bodhisattvas cannot bear to abandon other beings to their sufferings for such long periods of time. Again, if you cannot, or do not want to, proceed to any pure land, and must enter a womb, there is this instruction for choosing a womb in the impure life cycle. Listen to it. Choose your continent for rebirth as explained already. Using your clairvoyance, enter a womb in a place where the Dharma has spread. Caution is required, For even if you were to be reborn magically in a heap of dung, you would get the notion that the impure mass smelled delicious, and you would be reborn in it by the force of your attraction. Therefore you should not adhere to whatever appearance occurs, and you must discount any signs that trigger attachment or aversion. Then choose a good womb. And here the willed intention is important, so you must create it as follows. Hey! For the sake of all beings, I will be reborn as a world-ruling emperor, or of the priestly class, sheltering all beings like a great shade tree, or as the child of a holy man, an adept, or of a clan with an impeccable Dharma lineage, or in a family where the parents have great faith. I must succeed in this coming life by adopting a body that has great merit to enable me to accomplish the aims of all beings. Aiming your will in this way, you should enter the womb. At that time, the womb you have entered should appear to you as if magically transformed into a divine palace. You should pray to the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions, the archetype deities, and especially to the Lord of Great Compassion. And you should visualize that they are all anointing you in consecration as you enter the womb. The womb should be visualized as a mandala palace, an ideal environment for the development of an enlightenment-oriented body. In fact, all mandala palaces, or measureless mansions, are consciously constructed as womb environments for archetype deities. So, here the mentally highly acute and creative Betwinbing is being instructed to structure his womb in the optimal manner for his growth. His entry therein should be experienced as if it were a royal consecration. In thus choosing the womb door, there is always danger of erring. Under the influence of evolution, you might see an excellent womb door as bad. You might see a bad womb door as excellent. So here the key instruction for choosing is important. Do as follows. Even if a womb door appears to be excellent, do not become attached to it. Even if it appears bad, do not become averse to it. Enter it within the experience of the universal loving equanimity, free of lust and hate and compulsive choosing between good and bad. This is the authentic profound key instruction. The idea is for the between being to enter her womb without coming under the heavy influence of the emotional addictions, lust, hate, or delusion. This is important in order to remain alert to the true nature of the place and not make the worse than fatal error of taking rebirth in a horrid life form. Taking refuge in the 3 jewels. Here, except for a few persons with deep experience, it is hard to be free of the disease of negative instincts. So if the deceased cannot avoid attachment and aversion, even the dumbest, most sinful, most bestial person can eliminate negative instincts by taking refuge in the 3 jewels: the Buddha, the Dharma, and the community. So once again, you should call the deceased by name and say the following words up to 7 times. Hey, noble one. If you cannot abandon lust and hate and know how to choose a womb door, then, no matter what visions come to you, say the name of the 3 jewels. And go to them for refuge. Pray to the Lord of Great Compassion. Go forward with your head held high. Recognize that you are in the between. Abandon possessive love toward your dear ones left behind, your son, your daughter, your friends. They cannot help you now. Now go to the blue light of the human realm and the white light of the divine. Go to the beautiful jewel house and the pleasure garden. After saying this 7 times, pray to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, and read 7 times the prayer for refuge from all terrors, the root verses of the 6 betweens, and the prayer for deliverance from the straits of the between. Then read loudly and precisely the liberation by wearing, the natural liberation of the body. Also read the Dharma practice, natural liberation of the instincts. The prayer for refuge from all terrors, the root verses of the six betweens, and the prayer for deliverance from the straits of the between arc, all included at the beginning of Part 2, in Chapter 5, the Between Prayers. The Dharma practice, natural liberation of the instincts, is included as Chapter 7, the first of the supplementary translations. The liberation by wearing, natural liberation of the body, is not translated here. As mentioned before, it contains mantras to be put into amulets and placed on the body of the deceased, or to be read aloud. If you perform these practices properly, the yogi or yogini with high realization will succeed in the death point soul transmission, will not need to wander in the between, and will be liberated on the great straight upward path. Some less developed but practiced persons will recognize the reality clear light after the death point between, and will attain enlightenment on the straight upward path. Others still less developed, during the progressive sets of 7 days when the visions of the mild and fierce deities arise in the reality between, will be liberated by one manifestation or another, according to their specific evolutionary destinies and intellectual propensities. Being offered these practices suitable for many different stages, they will recognize the one fitting for them and will be liberated. However, those with weak evolutionary destinies or with negative evolutionary momentum of sins and obscurations may yet wander downward into the existence between. Since there are different levels of orientation like the rungs of a ladder, if one does not help them recognize the clear light, another will, and they will become liberated. Again, among these, some with very weak destinies may not recognize the clear light and may lose themselves to terror and panic. Even in their case, as there are various different instructions about blocking the womb door and choosing the womb door, if one does not help them recognize the clear light, another will. They can hold on to their guiding intentions and will attain the boundless good qualities of the higher stages. Finally, even the lowest, most bestial type of person can rebound from the horrid states through the excellence of taking refuge in the three jewels. They can attain the precious human embodiment endowed with liberty and opportunity. In their next life they can encounter spiritual teachers and friends, they can receive spiritual instructions, and they, too, will be liberated. If this teaching is available during the existence between, this instruction can magnify the continuing impact of good evolution, like extending an irrigation ditch with a water trough. It is impossible for even the most sinful persons not to be liberated by this teaching. Why? In the occasion of the between, both the compassion of the whole host of mild and fierce Buddha deities and the negative presence of the devils and demons are constantly escorting the soul of the deceased. Therefore, understanding this teaching at this time can completely change his perception and lead him to liberation. Further, as the mental body of the between person has no flesh and blood embodiment, transformation is easy. In the between, the soul can wander far, wherever he wants, and his evolutionary subtle clairvoyance can see and hear everything. Held by memory, the soul's awareness can transform in an instant. The very nature of the between is highly advantageous for spiritual development. It is like an acceleration machine. The mental continuum of a person in the ordinary lifetime is like a huge tree trunk that cannot be moved by 100 men. When it is in the between, It is as if floated in water, it can be brought where you wish in an instant. Or it is like turning a horse with a rein. Therefore, friends should go to all who die and not disturb the corpse, but read this teaching and pray until blood and lymph run from the nostrils. Out of devotion to this teaching, animals should not be sacrificed in dedication to the deceased. Near the corpse, no one, neither friend nor relative, should be allowed to weep, wail, and lament. You should generate as much virtue as possible. Further, all teachings associated with this great book of natural liberation through understanding in the between should also be read after completing the guiding instructions, as they are also extremely excellent. This teaching should constantly be recited. You should cultivate it, both word and meaning. Then when you know that the time of your death is certain from recognizing the signs of death, if your health allows, you should read it aloud yourself and think about it. If your condition does not allow, you should have your friends read the text and pray. There is no doubt you will effectively be liberated. This is the teaching that does not require meditation and extensive practice. It is the profound instruction that liberates by regarding, liberates by hearing, and liberates by reading. This profound instruction guides even the great sinner on the secret path, if you don't forget its words and meanings, even when being chased by 7 hounds. Even if the Buddhas of the past, present, and future were to search for instructions to attain perfect enlightenment at the point of death, they would come up with nothing better than this. This completes the instruction on the between, this means of liberating embodied beings, this profound quintessence, the great book of natural liberation through understanding in the between. Hathva Jaya Jaya. We have reached the end of this journey, hopefully having helped the departed to achieve liberation, or, as is more likely if the departed did not practice for this between transition during her lifetime, to attain a favorable rebirth. In either case, according to the worldview of the Book of Natural Liberation, we can count on further interaction with our friend or loved one. If she has attained liberation, she will voluntarily reincarnate to help us and other mother beings find our way through our crises and achieve the joy of freedom, wisdom, and compassionate interconnection. If she has attained a favorable rebirth, it will be in the same kind of circumstances we already enjoy or will enjoy in our next lives, and we will continue to work on developing the best in our relationship, whether we recognize each other or not. Having brought our minds into focus on the art of traveling in the between, we should renew our resolve to prepare ourselves for the time when we will need it for ourselves. We should set a time with like-minded Dharma friends to reread it once every month or 2, mentally extending our assistance to those who have died during that time, whether known or unknown. We should learn more about the 3-body mentor yoga and the natural liberation through naked vision, identifying the intelligence. We should memorize the prayers if possible, or at least become very familiar with them. We should contemplatively read over the Dharma practice, natural liberation of the instincts, investigating the look and feel of the Buddha clans, and developing a sense of familiarity, even family feeling, with the archetype Buddha deities, mild and fierce. We should read more broadly in the Buddhist literature, especially the Jataka, former lives of the Buddha tales, the descriptions of Buddha lands, and the biographies of enlightened saints. If we belong to a religion other than Buddhism, we should investigate the iconography of its deity, angels, and mentor saints, not believing attenuated traditions that may think there are no such intercessionary beings in that religion. We should cultivate a feeling of familiarity with the Great Mother, or with Abraham, Moses, Jesus, Muhammad, Confucius, Lao Tzu, Rama, Krishna, Shiva, or whichever of their saintly followers. If we don't believe in anything non-material, we should feel friendly with all posited divine or superhuman beings, just to help us not be afraid in case we remain conscious and meet someone after we should have entered peacefully into oblivion. Above all, we should heed the Book of Natural Liberation and try not to become morbid when we consider or encounter death. If our loved one dies, we should channel our grief into helpful activity, remaining joyous and cheerful, not indulging in weeping and wailing, either just because we feel like it, which feeling is after all a culturally determined conventional reaction, to convince others, including the departed, that we care, to assuage our own sense of guilt at surviving, or to avoid facing our new aloneness. We can accept the testimony of the Book of Natural Liberation, that we will only frighten and annoy the soul of the departed and distract her from optimally navigating the between. She is the most important guest at a death and funeral. She is in the most momentous transition point of her life cycle, and positive or negative influences will affect her for years and lives to come. So in dealing with death, let us honor the spirit of the Book of Natural Liberation, at least by trying to do the right thing by having a good time. May all enjoy happiness and the best of luck. And that's not all. Our experts and regular viewers respond to all comments. Also check if you forgot to subscribe and set your bell to receive notifications about new audiobooks and other useful self-development materials that we release regularly. Join in the discussions, don't forget to give likes and, if possible and inspired, support the development of the channel financially. All useful links will be in the description and the first attached comment. Goodness, love and wisdom to all. And now move on to watch the next part of the video at the links below, or choose something from the playlists of the channel and those you see on the screen.